But let's begin however you're sitting, on a chair or cushion, taking a moment to sort of settle in, finding a posture that's relaxed but awake, not rigid or slouched, but supported. You might gently lengthen the spine, soften the shoulders, letting your hands rest somewhere that feels natural. And as we begin this practice, we're holding the theme of effort without strain. So noticing what it might be like to be here without needing to force anything, without needing this moment to be different than it is. There's nothing to fix, nothing to achieve. This is just an opportunity to sit and to feel and to be present. And even maybe just noticing what kind of effort are you bringing into right now. Is there any subtle sense of trying or pressure, expectation? And we'll explore that together. The meditation will begin and end at the sound of the bell. Gently allowing the eyes to close if that feels comfortable, or you always have the option of having a softened gaze on the floor in front of you. We'll begin with a brief body scan, bringing the attention first to the top of the head, noticing any sensation here. Is there warmth, tingling, pressure? Finding some ease with each breath in and out. Letting the forehead soften, the space between the eyebrows. Letting the eyes rest in the sockets, the muscles around them, releasing and finding ease. Moving down into the jaw, unclenching it. Noticing if there's any gripping or holding here. Allow the teeth maybe to slightly part, to soften the mouth and the tongue. Bringing awareness to the neck and shoulders. These areas often carry effort without us realizing it. So you might gently invite the shoulders to drop. No forcing, but an invitation to the body. Letting our attention move through the arms, elbows, hands. Noticing any sensations here, pressure, subtle movement. Bringing awareness into the chest and upper back. Feeling the natural movement of the breath here, if that's available. Not deepening or changing the breath, but just noticing it. Moving down into the belly, letting the belly be soft. Not holding it in, not controlling it. Just allowing our breath to move naturally as it expands and contracts. Continuing down through the hips, the seat, the points of contact with the floor or chair, and just feeling the weight of the body being held. And finally bringing attention down through the legs, the knees, the calves, letting the whole body be here. And as we hold the body as a whole, sitting, breathing, there's no need to do anything else. And from here, we'll gently begin to anchor our attention to the breath, not as something to control or perfect, but simply as something to return to. You might notice the breath at the nose, or some notice it at the chest or the belly, wherever it's most natural for you. And as you settle in, remembering this practice isn't about getting it right. It's not about having a perfectly steady mind or a certain kind of experience. It's about becoming more intimate with what's here. And if you're anything like me, you might already notice the mind wandering, getting distracted or starting to think about something else. And that's not a problem. That's part of the practice too. Each time you notice the mind drifting away, there's an opportunity to return. Noticing the breath, each inhale and exhale, finding an anchor here. And if the mind drifts away, just return. Inhale and exhale, returning to the breath. And how we return to the breath matters. Instead of pulling the attention back sharply or judging yourself for wandering, seeing if you can come back with a bit of kindness, a tone of, it's okay, just come back. Breathing in, breathing out. This is what effort without strain begins to feel like. Not forcing the mind to stay, but gently guiding it back again and again. And as you continue sitting, you might begin to notice different mind states arising. Maybe the mind is feeling busy or restless. It's that time of day, so maybe it's feeling a little sleepy. Maybe there's ease or discomfort. Whatever is here right now, seeing if you can shift from trying to change it to simply relating to it. If there's restlessness, notice it. Feel it in the body. If there's tightness somewhere, see if there's a way to soften around it, even just slightly. And if there's ease, so nice, maybe allow it to be there without holding on to it. Maybe you notice a sense of striving, a feeling maybe of, I should be doing this better. We can just notice that too. It's just another experience arising in our awareness. And this is where the practice becomes less about doing and more about returning. Returning to the breath, returning to the body, returning to this moment, just as it is. You might even begin to sense that the effort you're making now is becoming quieter than when you started. Less forceful. Maybe it feels less like effort and more like a gentle remembering. And if it helps, you can silently offer yourself a phrase like, nothing to fix, back to the breath. Or just this. There's just this right here, right now. Maybe you need permission with the phrase, it's okay to be here. It's okay to be here. Letting whichever phrase support the tone of your practice today. And over time, this kind of effort starts to feel more natural. Less like work and more like a rhythm, a pattern you've created. More like something you can recognize than something you have to build from scratch. We'll move into a few minutes of silent practice, sitting with the breath, the body, whatever's present. And let the practice be simple. Noticing when the mind wanders and gently returning again and again. Nothing to force, nothing to fix. We're just sitting, breathing, and returning. The meditation will end at the sound of the bell. Thank you for your practice. So tonight is the final talk in our series on wise effort, and I feel like we're closing with something that for a lot of us can feel a little counterintuitive. So effort without strain. What does that even mean? So over the past few weeks, we've been exploring how to show up and practice with intention, how to recognize what's here, how to work with difficult states, how to adjust our energy so we're not forcing and not collapsing. And all of that naturally leads to the question, what kind of effort can we actually sustain? Because I think if we're honest, or I'll speak for myself, I have a pretty complicated conditioning around effort. I feel like we've shared that over the weeks in our prompts. We're used to effort meaning pushing or trying harder, holding ourselves to a certain standard, whether that's one we placed on ourselves or an external one. And I feel like that can show up in practice too. When I sit down to meditate, usually those thoughts are the loudest and the first out of my head. You haven't done this enough. Why are you breathing like that? Just like critical. And even if the voice is quiet, there's still this like underlying pressure, a subtle strain that sort of like always lives there. But the direction of our practice is much more gradual and much more forgiving than that. It's not about forcing ourselves into a better state. It's about becoming familiar with what's already here in a way that can be steady and kind. And over time, something surprising can start to happen. The effort that once felt like work maybe starts to feel more natural. We had some examples of that, right? less striving and more like returning. And so we want to bring that same type of ease from our practice into our lives. So tonight we'll explore when effort becomes strain, the shift from doing to returning, and a practice that can hold a life. I feel like one of the clearest signs that our effort has gone off track is that it starts to feel tight. Now, does anyone here have that feeling in your body sometimes where it's just like vibrating or tightness? You might notice it in really... Yeah, me neither. Never. You might see it in really simple ways, like clenching the jaw. That's a huge one for me. I feel like I'm subconsciously always holding my mouth really tight for no reason. Or maybe trying to hold on to the breath. I know when I was like early days in my meditation practice, it was like, breathe slower. So like just hold this breath a little longer, breathe a little deeper. Or getting frustrated when the mind wanders. That's something I hear all the time, that like my meditation is supposed to be quiet. And I was like, I don't know who told you that, but it's not true. Or even subtly in the body, like when I was first diagnosed with anxiety, my therapist was like, okay, let's uncross our legs and our arms and open our hands. And I was like, I didn't realize all the ways that I was just like holding my body tightly. I'm like, this is a normal way to sit with my fists closed and my arms crossed and my legs. What did it feel like to just like let my body go? And so that kind of effort is incredibly common, and it usually comes from a good place because we care. I feel like we wouldn't have such an issue with effort or the result of effort if we didn't care about what we were doing. You know, we want the practice to work for us, but underneath it, there's an assumption that something about this moment needs to be different. Just like quiet little person on my shoulder. Something about this, it could be better, or something's not right. And that if I just try a little harder all the time, it'll be just a little bit better, or I'll get closer to whatever that expectation is. I found this quote from Sabine Selassie. Sorry, Sabine, you're not going to watch this, but if I pronounced your name wrong. She's an Ethiopian-born American writer, meditation teacher, speaker, who teaches on belonging, liberation, and interdependence. And she blends Buddhist teachings with contemporary issues of race, identity, and culture. And she said, the practice is not about perfection, it's about intimacy with our experience. And that is scary to me. Intimacy with my own experience. I was challenged recently to describe how I felt, and then I just gave the story of everything around how I felt. And then the question came back to, okay, but how did that feel? And I didn't know what to say. I was like, I don't know. She's like, did it feel warm or cold, or do you feel pressure? And I was like, couldn't tell you. That would be way too intimate with my own feelings. But what begins when we become more intimate, what begins to shift, is not trying less, but relating differently to the thing. So it's not a complete abandonment of trying. It's relating to what's happening or the experience or the feeling differently. And instead of effort being about controlling the experience, I love some control, it becomes about supporting awareness. Instead of tightening around what's happening, we start to allow a little more space. A little more of that like, oh, okay, shoulders down, got it. Uncross the arms. And this is where something like self-compassion becomes really practical. So not as a concept, but as a tone that we carry. The tone we bring to our effort. And the difference between, okay, focus more, like you really should focus, which is what my ADHD brain wants to tell me all the time. Wow, you can't, it was only an hour, like you haven't, come on, let's do it. And instead, the tone of kindness can say something more like, it's okay, just come back. We're just coming back to the thing over and over. And I feel like that small shift can really change the entire feel of a practice. And when I was writing this talk, that actually kept happening. My mind was finding everything else to focus on. Oh, just that one email, or like, oh, did I respond to that text? ooh, chapstick. Like literally anything. It was a real like squirrel dog scenario happening in my head. And I wasn't getting it done any faster by then like shaming myself for not getting it done faster. Forcing it to happen wasn't making it happen any more quickly. So I feel like I had to like release the valve a little bit. If anyone has an Instapot, that valve, when you like break the seal and it's like, psh, that's what that feels like sometimes. Just like release the pressure, release some of the expectation a little bit, give myself some space to like find my way back. And it's something that Kristen Neff, who is an associate professor, widely recognized for pioneering research in the academic study of self-compassion. She agrees with this. She says, kindness doesn't weaken effort, it actually makes it sustainable. Wish someone would have told me that a long time ago. And so we're not removing effort, we're removing the friction that comes with fighting ourselves. And that made me think of like a slip and slide. Like, is it more comfortable and does it get me anywhere quicker to just like dive right in, bare, no water, right? Like dead standstill, just like a hard stop. I feel like that's what it feels like to fight myself. It's like there's like something myself, right? I made the decision to slide without water. There's friction. And obviously, throw a little soap on there, some water. It's a lot more fun and something I would much rather prefer to do. That's what releasing the valve, that's what removing some of that pressure can do. And I feel like another way this shows up is how we relate to consistency, which again, ADHD, what is consistency? I don't know it. Not very intimate with that. But I feel like a lot of us can have sort of like all or nothing relationships, either with our practice or things in our life. I certainly do. We think it needs to look a certain way. Like if we're going to meditate, it has to be for an hour. It has to be the perfect focus, the right mindset. Nothing distracted me. And if it doesn't look like that, it's easy to feel like we're failing, we're falling off. I know this applies to a lot of areas of my life. That all or nothing mindset creeps in a lot. If I don't work out 5 days, which is like aspirational, you failed. You only did 2, failure. If I'm cleaning, I need to like deep clean. Like everything is coming out. I'm wiping it all down. I'm putting it back. It's getting labels. There's bins. Andrew knows the bins. There's always a bin for something. But if I don't get the time to do that, which like realistically, how often do I have the time to clean like that? I failed clearly. I only got to one room. I only changed the sheets on the bed. That's it. So there's little gray area in my mind that's comfortable with just that. Just trying enough for the moment, especially when it comes mainly to my own expectations of myself. But what actually builds our practice isn't intensity, it's repetition. It's returning, like we did in our practice today, returning to the breath, just returning to the cushion, sitting down, returning to community, returning to movement, whatever that is for you, just coming back to it. And this is something that I feel like we can all see in everyday life. Like most things that feel easy now didn't start that way. Driving. Terrifying. Hated it. Parallel parking. Cooking. Wasn't always good at that. Brushing your teeth as a child. And now it's just something you do. Right? At some point, they all required some form of effort or attention. And now it's just something you do. But that happened rather through repetition, through becoming familiar with it. And that effort didn't disappear. It doesn't mean that like you magically brush your teeth every day without doing anything. It takes effort. It just becomes quieter effort. It's not so loud. And so practice works the same way. At first, maybe returning to the breath feels like something we have to remember to do. Oh, mind's wandering. Okay, gotta remind myself. It might feel clunky or repetitive, but over time, that returning becomes more natural. Less like something we're forcing and more like something we recognize. And so this is where the shift in identity starts to happen. Instead of I'm trying to meditate, it becomes I'm someone who returns to my cushion or my space. And I feel like that's a much more stable place to practice from than holding myself accountable to the I part of it and like shaping it. So what if returning to the practice was more like a celebration? Like, yes, I did it. I sat down to meditate. And it doesn't have to mean that it's only something worth celebrating if it was good or long or whatever our mind is telling us that it has to be. It's just that I came back. That is the thing to celebrate. And it didn't collapse when things felt messy because I just came back. Kaira Jewel Lingo, who is a Buddhist teacher that I've done a couple workshops with, she said, we don't have to force ourselves to be different. We can learn to hold ourselves with compassion right here. I feel like that's challenging. I'm always trying to change or grow or be better, improve in some way. And that makes it very hard to sit in the here and now and think that that's just good enough or more than good enough. And so as we start to put all of this together, practice becomes less about improving ourselves and more about learning how to be with ourselves. And that's a really important shift because life is not always going to cooperate with our idea of what good looks like or what a good practice is, what a good life is. We all have different measures of what that looks like. There'll be times when you're tired or distracted or overwhelmed, grieving, busy. The list goes on. And if our practice depends on everything being just right, it won't last very long. Maybe a second or two, a minute if you're lucky. But if practice is about meeting experience wherever it is, whatever's going on, meeting it with some sort of steadiness and care, then it becomes something much more flexible. And that helps us transition this practice into life with the same attitude and flexibility. And that's really what we mean by sustainable practice. Not a perfect practice, no ideal conditions, but just something that can move with our life, as opposed to us trying to fit into whatever that ideal is. And so that might look like shorter sits. Maybe you had the intention to sit for 20 and all you had was 10 in you. Okay. It might look like noticing your breath while you're walking instead, or pausing for a moment in the middle of your day. It might look like recognizing in real time, this is hard, and staying with that experience instead of pushing it away. So when you spill your coffee in the morning, when you forget your charger and your phone's at 5%, when they put olives on my pizza, which is so gross. And while these are all like minor annoyances, this is the practice, right? If we can be with those things, then we can be with ourselves when a relationship ends, when we become maybe a caregiver for someone who's sick, when we're grieving the loss of life, when big moments happen. We're able to be with them in real time, and we can recognize this is hard. And we can stay with that experience instead of pushing it away, because we've done it before. And over time, there's also a softening around the idea that we need to fix ourselves, that certain thoughts or emotions are the problem. I've always cared too much. It's always been the problem. But practice starts to include more of our experience rather than narrowing it down. Everything is welcome in our practice. And that inclusion is what makes it feel like less work Like, isn't it more work to keep things out than it is to just like open up to whatever's there? It takes a lot more effort in my mind to be like, okay, but not this and this and this. And it's like, aren't I thinking about it anyways by telling myself that it can't be here? Lamarad Owen says, freedom is not about getting rid of anything. It's about changing how we relate to everything. So effort is still there, but now it's supporting us. It's supporting openness rather than working against what's already happening. And so as we close this series, we might reflect on how our understanding of effort has shifted over the last 5 weeks. Maybe at the beginning, it felt like something we had to apply, something we had to get just right, try harder. But over time, it can feel different, less like pushing and more like staying connected. And doesn't that just like feel better than pushing it away? To be more connected to myself. And the kind of effort that lasts is not the kind that burns bright and then fades out. It's not about going hard and then expecting it to be that way forever. It's the kind that is steady and kind and willing to begin again and again and again. And maybe the simplest way to hold all of this is practice doesn't have to be something we struggle with. It can be something that supports us. Not perfectly, but consistently. And so rather than asking, am I doing this well enough? We might ask, can I stay in relationship with this moment just as it is? And let that be enough. Thank you for your time. Take what works, leave the rest.